Hey guys, it's Jacob from St. Bonaventure. Today I'm filming out front of my apartment in Brentwood, and I have a question for you. Why did God make us? Like you and me, why did He put us on this earth? The church teaches that God made us to have a relationship with Him. So when God made our first parents, in the Bible they're called Adam and Eve, He made them in relationship with Him. Our first parents knew God, they loved God, and they had harmony with God. They also had harmony with each other and harmony with the world around them. And that original state of harmony is called original justice. Our first parents lived in original justice where everything was right and just between them and God, them and each other, and them and the world. But looking around the world we're in today, it is not perfect harmony. It is not perfect justice. You see, the world is kind of broken in a lot of ways. So what happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. Sin happened. You see, the church teaches that our first parents sinned. And when they sinned, they brought into the world all of the consequences of sin. In the book of Wisdom, it says that God did not make death as part of His plan. But by sin and by the work of the devil, death entered the world. When God made us, He made us to live and to have life and to be full. But what sin does is it causes like a wound in your soul or in your heart where even though God is trying to pour life into you and fill you up, it kind of just spills out the bottom. So all the life that God gave to our first parents began to spill out. And that's why death enters the world physically, but also spiritually. And the sin of our first parents has some consequences. The first consequence of sin is a dimmed intellect, where your ability to know God is dimmed, and it's harder to see God. You don't see Him as clearly. It's not as obvious that He's present in your life. It's sort of like there's a veil between you and God. The second consequence of sin is a loss of freedom in your will. You see, God made you to be free and to be able to just like make choices freely. But what happens when you sin is you start to become kind of enslaved to that sin, like addiction, right? Where it's not that you're choosing to do this thing, but it's that you feel compelled to and you're sort of bound to it. And that's one of the effects of sin. Another effect of sin is a loss of that connection to God. That connection is now damaged. That harmony, the original justice, that was shattered by sin. So the connection that we had with God, the connection that you have with the people in your life, and the connection that you have to the earth that we walk on, all that harmony is disrupted by sin. That disruption leaves us fragmented and isolated and disconnected from all the things that we were made to be connected to. And the final effect of Adam and Eve's sin is that their human nature was wounded to the core. That dimmed intellect, that weakened will, the disrupted harmony and communion, all of that became part of their human nature. So that even when they had kids, their kids would have that same brokenness in them. And that's what we call original sin. We're all born with a human nature that's not perfect. It's been wounded by sin, and we all need healing. And my brothers and sisters, when our first parents sinned, even then, God promised to send a Redeemer. He promised to send a Savior. And He promised that this Savior would come and free us from our slavery to the devil and restore the life of grace in our hearts. That's what Advent is all about. Here we are preparing for the birth of Jesus, the Messiah. It's all about healing our hearts. That is why Jesus came. So as we get ready for Christmas Day and the family time and the presents or whatever you do on Christmas, prepare room in your heart for Jesus, because He is coming again into your heart and into mine this Christmas to bring the healing, to restore our communion to God, to enlighten our minds and soften our hearts and help us to have the connectedness that we were made for. That is what it's all about this Advent season. So let's make room for Jesus.